Welcome to the Florida Department of Transportation's public hearing for the Bradenton-Palmetto Connector Project Development and Environment, or PD&E Study. We appreciate your attendance and participation. This public hearing is being conducted to give the public the opportunity to review and provide comments on the preferred alternative and associated effects on the social, economic, cultural, natural, and physical environment. The purpose of this PD&E study is to evaluate engineering and environmental data and document information that will aid FDOT District 1 and the FDOT Office of Environmental Management, or OEM, in determining the type, preliminary design, and location of the proposed improvements. The Bradenton-Palmetto Connector PD&E study is located in Manatee County. It includes an important north-south connection that crosses the Manatee River, connecting the cities of Bradenton and Palmetto, and serves local and regional transportation needs. The study starts on US 301 at 9th Street East in Bradenton, travels north and merges with US 41. The study continues along US 41 over the DeSoto Bridge and ends north of 25th Street East in Palmetto. The DeSoto Bridge is located within the corridor. The department proposes to increase the capacity of US 41 by providing 6 at-grade lanes and 2 proposed express lanes. By 2045, Manatee County's population is projected to increase by almost 200,000 people. As a result, our alternatives focused on increasing capacity by adding lanes, addressing growing transportation demand, enhancing safety, and improving our regional transportation system. Within the project limits, the existing roadway includes multiple roadway configurations with a varying number of travel lanes and bicycle and pedestrian facilities. The following slides illustrate the current existing conditions of US 301, US 41 within the study area. The no-build alternative assumes that no capacity improvements are made through the year 2045 except routine maintenance. US 301 west of 9th Street East is 2 lanes southbound and 2 lanes northbound, with no sidewalks and no bike lanes. The median varies from a concrete barrier to a grassed median with paved outside shoulders and open drainage. US 41 south of the DeSoto Bridge varies along the corridor southbound from 2 lanes to 3 lanes and northbound from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. The median varies from a concrete separator to a grassed median with a closed drainage system. Sidewalks are present throughout this section, and there are no bicycle lanes. The existing DeSoto Bridge has 2 southbound and 2 northbound lanes separated by a concrete barrier. There are no outside shoulders, sidewalks, or bike lanes on the bridge. US 41 north of the DeSoto Bridge has 2 southbound and 2 northbound lanes, separated by a grass median with intermittent sidewalks and no bike lanes. The corridor varies from an open drainage system to a closed drainage system. Throughout this PD&E study process, FDOT evaluated multiple concepts to improve the operational capacity over the Manatee River to accommodate future travel demand. After environmental and engineering analyses and public and agency comments, many of these alternatives were eliminated. The last Bradenton-Palmetto Connector public workshops were held in person on Tuesday, February 3, 2026, and virtually on Thursday, February 5, 2026. Based on your feedback and additional environmental and engineering analyses, a preferred alternative was selected for the Bradenton-Palmetto Connector. The preferred alternative for the Bradenton-Palmetto Connector results in adding capacity to US 301, US 41 between 9th Street East in Bradenton and north of 25th Street East in Palmetto to ease congestion and meet transportation demand. Bicycle and pedestrian facilities will be provided throughout the project limits. Stormwater runoff will be conveyed to off-site stormwater facilities. The design speed varies from 40 miles per hour to 45 miles per hour throughout the project area. It is anticipated that additional right-of-way will be required for the proposed roadway and stormwater facilities. For additional information on potential parcel impacts, please speak with a staff representative here tonight. The following 3 slides show the proposed long-term improvements. South of the DeSoto Bridge, the proposed roadway would include 6 at-grade lanes with sidewalks on both sides of the road and 2 proposed express lanes elevated on a structure that could be tolled. The DeSoto Bridge is proposed to include 6 general-purpose lanes and 2 buffer-separated proposed express lanes. Shoulders and a shared-use path would be included on both sides. A concrete barrier would separate the 2 directions of travel. North of the DeSoto Bridge, the proposed roadway would include 6 at-grade lanes, a shared-use path on both sides, and 2 proposed express lanes elevated on a structure that could be tolled. The next 3 slides show the proposed interim improvements, which are intended to provide near-term congestion relief or improved traffic flow. It would be built before the elevated lanes. In the proposed interim improvements, the roadway from westbound State Road 64, Manatee Avenue, to the DeSoto Bridge is recommended to include 3 southbound lanes and 3 northbound lanes, with sidewalks on both sides, no bike lanes, and a raised median. On the DeSoto Bridge, the proposed interim improvements include 3 through lanes in each direction, inside shoulders, and a shared-use path on both sides of the bridge. The bridge will be built to accommodate the preferred alternative. The roadway north of the DeSoto Bridge is proposed to include 3 southbound lanes and 3 northbound lanes, separated by a grass median with a shared-use path on both sides of the roadway, and no bike lanes. Throughout this study, a no-build alternative is also considered. The no-build alternative assumes that no improvements are made through the year 2045 except for routine maintenance. There are advantages and disadvantages to the no-build alternative. Advantages of the no-build alternative include no inconvenience to traffic flow due to construction, no right-of-way acquisition, design, or construction costs, and no environmental or social impacts. Disadvantages could include increased traffic congestion, increased potential for crashes due to traffic congestion, not consistent with local transportation plans, and no accommodations for pedestrians or bicyclists along US 41 across the Manatee River. The no-build alternative remains a viable option and will continue to be evaluated until the completion of this study. However, the Bradenton-Palmetto Connector preferred alternative would include increasing roadway capacity, building 2 proposed express lanes, 2 additional general-purpose lanes, replacing the DeSoto Bridge, and adding bicycle and pedestrian facilities as well as other safety improvements along the corridor. FDOT evaluated environmental and socioeconomic factors relating to the new proposed improvements in accordance with the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969, as amended, and other federal requirements. The evaluation considered the effects on US 301, US 41 to accommodate 6 lanes at grade and 2 proposed express lanes for the Bradenton-Palmetto Connector. Wetlands, protected species, water quality, contamination sites, recreational sites, noise, air quality, historic structures, archaeological sites, and floodplains. Based on the analysis, there are no significant effects associated with the preferred build alternative. The following slides describe the preferred alternative impacts only. For interim improvements impacts, please refer to the evaluation matrix display board presented this evening. Protected species and habitats are afforded special protection under the Endangered Species Act of 1973 as amended and Florida statutes. FDOT assessed species within the project limits and, through ongoing coordination with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and National Marine Fisheries, has determined that the proposed project may affect, but is not likely to adversely affect, the existence of certain federally listed threatened or endangered species shown on the screen. The proposed project will have no effect on the existence of the federally listed threatened or endangered species shown on the screen. In addition, it was determined that the project will have no adverse effect anticipated on the state-listed threatened and endangered species listed on the screen. It was determined that the project will have no effect anticipated on the state-listed threatened and endangered species listed on the screen. Coordination with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, and the National Marine Fisheries Service regarding the final status of these species is ongoing. If the preferred alternative is approved by the Office of Environmental Management, FDOT District 1 will continue to work closely with environmental agencies in future phases, such as design and construction, to meet all environmental permitting requirements. FDOT evaluated wetlands within the project limits in accordance with Executive Order 11990, Protection of Wetlands. The proposed improvements will affect approximately 1.83 acres of wetlands, less than 0.10 acres of surface waters, and 1.10 acres of other surface waters. The department will mitigate wetland impacts which will result from the construction of this project pursuant to Section 373.4137 Florida statutes. To satisfy all mitigation requirements of Part 4 of Chapter 373 Florida statutes and 33 U.S. Code USC 1344, impacts to mangrove swamps will be mitigated by the purchase of wetland credits through a federal and state permitted mitigation bank whose service area is within the Manatee River watershed. The project has been evaluated for potential floodplain involvement in accordance with Executive Order 11988, Floodplain Management. Although this project is located within the limits of the 100-year floodplain, no work is being proposed below the 100-year flood elevation, and thus, this project does not encroach upon the base floodplain. Traffic noise studies were conducted for the preferred alternative. Traffic noise impacts were predicted during the design year at residential and recreational land uses. Noise barriers have been identified as a potentially feasible and cost-reasonable abatement measure for impacted residences at the Nest Apartments, Lone Oak RV Park, Palmetto Trace Apartments, and residences on First Avenue Court Northwest, as well as recreational uses at Palmetto Trace Apartments. The potential noise barriers will be evaluated for engineering and construction feasibility during the project's design phase. The team examined the project area for publicly owned properties that may be affected under Section 4F of the Department of Transportation Act of 1966. Coach Eddie Shannon Park, also known as Lincoln Park, is a Section 4F resource. The preferred alternative includes constructing the northbound travel lanes and the associated clear zone. FDOT will further coordinate with Manatee County during the design phase regarding potential impacts within Coach Eddie Shannon Park. Based upon the proposed minor impacts, the project will not adversely affect the features and use of Coach Eddie Shannon Park. Therefore, FDOT is pursuing a Section 4F de minimis finding. This hearing provides the opportunity for public comment on the project's impacts on Coach Eddie Shannon Park. To accommodate the roadway widening and anticipated stormwater facilities and floodplain compensation sites, acquisition of additional right-of-way is anticipated. The preferred alternative may impact 100 parcels, 1 potential business relocation, and 21 potential residential relocations are anticipated for stormwater facilities. These are shown on the concept plans. All right-of-way activities will follow Sections 339.09 and 421.55 Florida statutes, as well as the Federal Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970, commonly known as the Uniform Act. If you are required to move, you can expect to be treated fairly and in full compliance with these laws. An appraiser will inspect your property, and you are encouraged to be there during the inspection. This is an opportunity to share any information that might help establish the value of your property with the appraiser. You may also be eligible for relocation assistance and payment benefits. If you disagree with the decision regarding your eligibility or the amount offered, you do have the right to appeal. FDOT will ensure you have the forms and assistance needed to complete an appeal. If you move before receiving official notice, your relocation benefits may be jeopardized. The relocation specialists for this project are available and can answer your questions and provide more information regarding relocation assistance. An evaluation matrix showing a detailed comparison of the preferred alternative and the no-build alternative is provided in the project handout and is also on display here this evening. The matrix shows potential effects on the social, cultural, natural, and physical environments and identifies preliminary costs. The estimated costs for the Bradenton-Palmetto Connector US 301, US 41 from 9th Street East south of Bradenton to north of 25th Street north of Palmetto, approximately 4.5 miles, include $45 million for right-of-way acquisition for roadway and stormwater management areas, and $73.2 million for final design. The total estimated construction cost for the project is $732.1 million. The cost for construction engineering and inspection is estimated at $65.9 million. The department's preliminary estimate of the total project cost is $916.2 million. The project team has been actively developing and evaluating alternatives and preparing study documents. FDOT anticipates the location and design concept acceptance of this study will occur in late 2026. The study schedule is on display this evening. At this time, the FDOT's adopted 5-year work program includes funding for the PD&E study. There is partial funding for design and no funding for right-of-way or construction. The department is actively seeking funding mechanisms to construct all or portions of the project. We encourage you to review project information tonight and provide us your feedback. There are multiple ways to provide comments. During the live in-person event by completing a speaker card and handing it to anyone with a name tag during the upcoming intermission. Providing your comment to the court reporter at the comment table. By mail to the address shown on the screen, or by email or through the project website. All comments carry equal weight and should be submitted or postmarked by July 27, 2026 to become a part of the formal hearing record. All hearing materials presented tonight are available to the public on the project webpage and will remain posted for your review. The technical documents are also available for review in person at Central Library, Palmetto Branch Library, and FDOT Manatee Operations Center until July 27, 2026. Documents will remain on the project webpage following the hearing. If you would like to review these materials at the FDOT Manatee Operations Center, please make an appointment by contacting FDOT's Project Manager, Michelle Rudishauser, using the contact information included in your handout. You may also visit the project website for the latest study information, schedule, and upcoming events. This PD&E study is being conducted and completed according to the requirements of the National Environmental Policy Act and other related federal and state laws, rules, and regulations, which will qualify future phases of this project for federal funding, and this hearing was advertised consistent with those requirements. Please see the statute display board for all other applicable requirements. This hearing is also conducted in accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 and with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and related statutes. Anyone who feels he or she has been discriminated against with regard to race, color, national origin, age, sex, religion, disability, or family status may complete one of the forms located at the sign-in table and mail the completed form to the address listed on display. To stay informed, please visit the project website for the most up-to-date information. And finally, an FDOT safety moment. Stop speeding before it stops you. FDOT thanks you for making safety a continued priority. Thank you for your interest and participation in the Bradenton-Palmetto Connector Project Development and Environment Study public hearing, and for taking the time to join us this evening.